Good evening from London, and hello wherever you are in the world. We are here this evening with Robin Cutler and Andy Bromley from IngramSpark. I'm Orna Ross from the Alliance of Independent Authors, and this is one of our information seminars for self-publishers. Welcome everybody. Welcome Robin.
Hi Orna, I'm so happy to be here with you today. I am communicating with you from New Mexico in the U.S., so this is quite a treat for us to join your group.
Fantastic, thanks for being here. And Andy, a little bit closer to me.
Yeah, not quite as glamorous as Robin, but just outside Milton Keynes in the UK. That's where I'm calling from.
That's great. It's really great to have both of you here, and wonderful to have both the US and the UK represented, because of course Ingram is a global platform in the real true sense of the word. So it's great to have both perspectives on board, and I know you're both going to be talking about distribution of ebooks and p-books all over the world. So if I could just ask you first of all, perhaps to introduce yourselves a little bit, and we start with you, Robin. Can you tell us a little bit about your background? I know it'll be of interest to viewers that you were actually the person who started CreateSpace some time back, and yeah, just tell us a little bit about that and your journey to IngramSpark.
Yeah, I'm happy to. So I've had a fairly lengthy career in publishing. I started as a book designer with University Press, and then maybe 10 years ago, part of my career path, I actually joined Amazon after they had acquired a print-on-demand company called BookSurge. And so I wasn't the person that started CreateSpace, but I was certainly part of the team that rebranded the old BookSurge into CreateSpace, and have worked with publishers for a long time in both self-publishers and also traditional publishers, and helping them bring their books into the market. I joined Ingram about 2.5 years ago, and have since I joined Ingram been working to launch this IngramSpark program. We launched it in July of 2013, so it's fairly new, and we're really happy to talk to you and your members about this program.
That's fantastic, and we'll go into detail very shortly all about IngramSpark. But first, to hear a little bit more about Andy's path to here and now.
Yeah, thanks, Orna. So I've spent most of my career in publishing. I started with Pearson Education as part of the Pearson Group, which also owned Penguin, but I always worked in the higher education part of the business, in sales and later in marketing. And then I've spent 5 years with Cambridge University Press, managing their social science list in Europe, Middle East and Africa on the marketing side. So I guess a bias towards the education side of publishing, but I've been in publishing for about 12 years, and you know, mainly in Europe, but also in markets like the Middle East and Africa as well.
Fantastic. Okay, so let's talk Spark. Robin, as it's your baby, can you tell us a little bit about the rationale behind Spark? What were you guys trying to achieve when you started this whole thing going?
So Ingram, owns a company called Lightning Source that many of your members are probably familiar with. That is Ingram's print-on-demand company, and it was actually started by John Ingram about 16 years ago. And so that service, that print-on-demand service, has always been used by publishers and self-publishers who found, the value of the service as well as the quality of the print-on-demand product. And so we had Lightning Source, and we also have a ebook distribution platform that is less familiar to self-publishers, called CoreSource. So what we wanted to do was sort of marry together our print-on-demand and our ebook technologies with Ingram's distribution, and make it specific for self-publishers. So part of what we did with Spark was create this new user-friendly interface that wasn't part of what Lightning Source really had, and then provide this print-on-demand and this ebook as well as distribution all together in one place, specifically for self-publishers.
Okay, so you very much see Spark as a self-publisher, author-publisher platform. Micro-publishers use it, other small publishers who may publish other people. Is there a facility within to use it in that way?
You know, to be honest with you, it's like everybody's using it. We have bookstores that are setting up their own publishing programs using Spark. We have libraries. We have traditional publishers, but primarily it's geared and really designed for a publisher, I would say, with less than about 30 titles. Although we do have even larger publishers right now that are using it just because it's so easy to use.
Okay, and is it necessary to use both the e-book and the p-book platform? Can you pick and choose?
That's a great question, Orna. So the service, Spark provides for global print-on-demand and ebook services. However, you know, the publisher can decide how they want to use it. They can set up a title for E only, for P only, or for EMP combined, however, you know, best suits them. When they create their IngramSpark account, they will get all of those services that are attached to their account, and you know, they can decide later if they want to just upload an e-title. They can decide maybe later that, you know, a print title might be a good idea, and they'll have the service on their account that they will be able to do that.
Okay. Andy, maybe you would be able to talk to us a little bit about pricing. How much does it cost to use this service?
So, Robin can correct me if I make any mistakes, but there's the setup fee of $49, and that fee is refunded if the customer places 50 units or more within, is it 60 days, Robin?
Yeah. Yes, that's correct.
So with that $49, that does include the combination of both E and P distribution. So in terms of the pricing, obviously the publisher will decide what price they want to place that title into the market, but they have the option of offering distribution discount at 40% or 60%. And we felt we responded to the market, certainly in Europe, where there's that two-tiered approach. So it's getting the balance right between making sure the discount's high enough for booksellers to stock the title, but also giving the author publisher the flexibility depending on the kind of book that they are putting into the market. So an academic title, for example, would traditionally have a lower discount structure than maybe a trade book. So we wanted to have those two variables in place depending on the kind of publishing the author publisher was launching.
Sure. Can I take you back even just a step from that? Because perhaps not all of our members or all of our viewers will in fact understand how discounting works within a bookstore structure, because many of our members in fact don't sell into bookstores at all. They only sell directly online to their readers. So can you actually explain how discounting works? Because to be honest, books sell quite differently in bookstores. to any other product I know of. I mean, it actually makes selling books through a bookstore is not an easy prospect. It's not an easy thing to do, and I know it is a dream of many of our writers to see their book on a bookshelf in a proper, in inverted commas, proper bookstore. But it's financially quite a challenge. So can you just explain how discounting works?
Yeah, I mean, I can talk a little bit about it, and obviously Robin has got the US angle. I mean, in the UK, you know, there are two main UK distributors. If you're talking about your typical Waterstones account or Blackwell's or a retail bookshop that your UK members will be familiar with, many of those will decide to order through a UK wholesaler, like Gardner's, for example. There is also Bertram's. Gardner's seems to be one that is used quite extensively by bricks and mortar retail accounts, if you like. So typically, you know, they tend to command higher discounts because they order it through the UK wholesaler, who will pass on that discount to the bookshop minus their kind of margin. So if you were to offer a 40% discount, the typical bricks and mortar account would not get that 40%. You know, the wholesaler would take whatever percentage they would take, and I'd have to look at the detail of what Gardner's would take, but there would be a margin that they would pass on the majority of that to the bookshop, but they would obviously take theirs. So it's getting the balance between getting the margin high enough to attract those kind of orders, but also there is a lot of kind of work that probably needs to be done behind the scene from the author publisher to get those titles into the accounts. And what I should say is this is a huge challenge for publishers, for commercial publishers, not just author publishers, because there tends to be almost an algorithmic approach to which titles get stocked. And you know, if your average member goes into your Waterstones tomorrow, you'll see a certain type of book that typically sells at 50-55% discount, and you won't be surprised that a lot of celebrity, you know, books are on the front shelves because typically those are the ones that sell in high volume. But there has been success with author publishers where they've developed relationships with their local bookstores, or where they've agreed to do some kind of sign-in opportunity where they bring people to the bookstore. And I think you know, the bookstore does have autonomy to make that decision. I think there has been a move, certainly with some of the larger bricks and mortar accounts, that they order their titles centrally from head office, but I believe that many of the bookstores can independently buy books that are local to their market. You know, it could be a book around the region of that country or the region of that county, for example, that attracts local interest. That tends to,
Sure,
you know, gain buy-in. But what I would say is the challenge of getting the books into physical bookstores are increasingly difficult, not just for author publishers, but for independent publishers who are commercially commissioning titles for, you know, who are representing a range of different authors.
sure.
It's becoming
And
harder and harder.
is it the same, Robin? It's pretty much the same sort of discounting arrangements and distribution arrangements in the US?
I would say Ingram plays a central role in the U.S. Ingram is the #1 wholesaler for most retailers, not only bricks and mortar retailers, but also online retailers. And so in the U.S., it's even more critical. If the publisher thinks that there's a good, as Andy was saying, a local market into their local bookseller, it's really important that Ingram have the title, be able to supply the title to that bookstore. They want the business relationship with Ingram. The booksellers want the business relationship with Ingram. So that's really kind of important to understand that. So when Ingram sells books to retailers, we're handling the transaction, we're handling the collection of the money, we're passing along the publisher's part of that transaction, and so we play that vital business role in the middle. And it's the same in the UK as well.
Yeah.
And who would you see as your primary competition, if you like, and who is Spark's primary competitor, and how do you compare?
For Spark?
Yeah. So for the author publisher who's looking at the various distribution options, why would they go with Spark vis-a-vis some of the other options that are there on the marketplace for author publishers?
So I would say the primary competitor, although they're also a collaborator, is CreateSpace and Amazon, because Ingram also sells into Amazon, and we're one of the chief wholesalers to Amazon. So where we're a little bit different is I think our print. The print product itself has more offering. CreateSpace does, on their print side, does paperbacks, where we also do hardcover. And we also offer a variety of color options. We actually have color options that actually make it almost affordable to put color in your book, where it's been sort of almost prohibitive. To this point. And then on the ebook distribution, I mean, with CreateSpace having the direct connection with Amazon and Amazon Kindle, you only have that one outlet for ebook distribution, where with Spark we have like some 80 ebook online retailers that we distribute to, including Amazon Kindle, Apple, iBooks, Kobo, Barnes & Noble, Nook, and then a whole host of other online retailers that are specialized sort of retailers in other countries, and then that are genre specific.
And again, is it possible to pick and choose? Is it possible to say, yeah, I want to go with Ingram to kind of distribute me into Apple or whatever, but I want to keep my KDP myself? Is it possible to do that?
So currently in Spark, if you have, as a publisher, if you have a direct relationship with Kindle, you can opt out of us distributing to Kindle for you. And in a lot of cases, that does kind of make sense. You're going to earn a little bit higher royalty that way, especially if you go KDP Select. And I don't want to get into a lot of the detail about their program because I'm not as up to date on it as I used to be a few years ago. But that's something to take a look at. The beauty of what we do, and it doesn't take long before you kind of become weary of providing content directly to all these different online retailers. You have to upload to their specifications, and you're never exactly sure what you're going to get back. A lot of the terms are net terms. They can discount off their own site. The revenue that the publisher gets can vary depending on how their content is discounted off those retailer sites. So for Spark, it's basically like a one-stop. So we do allow you to opt out of Kindle. We're moving to give you an opt-out of Apple if you want to opt out of Apple. That's probably a few months before we have that choice. But all the other channels are just provided as part of the service.
And what fee does Ingram take for that?
So the way it works on the, and this is a little bit more simplified way, I think, in thinking about ebook revenue. So a lot of sites will say, we pay you net of whatever, we get. And that net, like I said just now, can include the discounting off the retailer site. What we do instead is we just pay you 40% of your list price that the publisher sets on the title. So you always know what you're going to get. And when you really do kind of drill into looking at what some of these other ebook distributors offer, it's very close, if not better, than what you're going to get if you do it yourself. And you're going to really save yourself a lot of aggravation, because we are aggregating the content, and we work directly with these providers, so we're going to make sure your file is going to go and have no issues when we pass it along. And so that's something to keep in mind too.
Okay, we have a question coming in from Yolanda Johnson-Bryant, which is relevant here, asking about Spark submission fees on the files, the interior files and the cover files. Traditionally with LSI, every time you resubmitted a file, there is a charge, and of course with CreateSpace there is no charge for changes. What's the situation with Spark?
So we do have a revision fee, and this is a revision of the files themselves, and so we just charge per file. So if you're going to upload a new cover, we do charge $25, and this is US dollars. I have no idea what the converted price to UK is, but it's whatever that converted price is in the UK. So it's US $25 per file.
Okay. $25 per file per change.
Mm-hmm. That's okay. What we currently have, and that's not saying that we are always going to have that cast in stone. We already are making and have made changes to Spark to try to streamline and also make it more affordable all the way down the line, especially for self-publishers.
Okay, thank you. And another question from Yolanda while we're there, and I think you've addressed this, but just to confirm it, she says that her clients are worried about distribution, and will Spark have the same level of distribution as LSI?
Yes, so Spark has exactly the same distribution as what LSI has, and all the same lightning source options that you also have in Spark. It's exactly the same.
And just to echo what Robin said, I mean, one of the advantages of Spark is it plugs you into that whole Global Connect program, where these are services which you have to elect into if you're an LSI customer, because we can't assume certain things, because if you're a large multinational publisher, you may have exclusive distribution rights in certain countries. So therefore we need permission to plug in Russia, for example, or plug in Germany. With IngramSpark, you automatically get that, so you don't have to worry about giving those permissions or things like that, because we know that an author publisher just wants their book in as many markets as possible. And one of the big strengths of Ingram is we plug you into 39,000 possible channels of ordering that title. So Ingram, Amazon being one channel, we've got a whole range of channels, from distributors in certain countries like in India, in Germany, in the UK, to independent bookshops who do get a direct order from Ingram. So one of the things I would encourage author publishers to think about is, if they are marketing or targeting a particular region of the world, they can't automatically assume that if they was ordering via Amazon, that Amazon are a known entity in that country, because we know that in the UK and in many parts of Europe, and certainly in America, Amazon are very dominant in that market, but there are certain regions of the world where there's an appetite for English language content, English language authorship, where it would be very difficult to get that content into part of the world unless they went through a feed such as Ingram, who connect all those dots, who can make the book available in India and in Russia and in Germany and in all other parts of North America and Europe.
And obviously the challenge, if you are extending into markets other than your own. So I think, you know, most of us tend to do best in our home territory, and then, you know, find that in other territories, if it takes off, it may be luck, or you may be the result of an actual marketing campaign or whatever. Though we have some exceptions who, you know, UK authors who do particularly well in the US or in Canada or whatever, and don't really know why. Generally, it's the result of kind of hard graft. And if you want to sell in Russia, you need to do a plan for Russia. And if you want to sell in India, you need to do a plan for India. Are you guys offering any ways in which you can help the author publisher with that, or is that completely down to the publisher themselves? Is marketing not part of your bag?
Yeah, I'll let Robin touch on some of the developments, because Robin knows obviously more about that. But what I would say is, well, there's two things. You're absolutely right. I think we need to be clear about what distribution is and what marketing does. So we can make it available in all those parts of the world. I mean, we've got a print-on-demand facility in the UK, in Milton Keynes, many in America, obviously. We have a printing facility and distribution reach in Australia with our own channels. So not only there's two advantages. A, we can get that book to the market much quicker, because if somebody in Australia orders a book, we'll print it in Melbourne and get it to that customer, you know, 48 hours, possibly 3 days maximum. Where you're not printing it in another side of the world and shipping it. But you're absolutely right. I mean, Robin can go on to how we're going to, you know, how we can potentially address this. But one thing I try and make clear to not only author publishers but also independent and medium-sized publishers is that they still need to market themselves in the regions of the world that they want to sell into. And one of the things that, you know, some authors could consider is that, you know, you may think, you know, it may be very difficult to get airtime in the UK because so many people are pitching for the same part of the market. And I would advise people, well, look at other countries that have got an appetite for English content or a certain genre of books, and target that region of the world and use Ingram as a way of getting that content into that market, because you may find that your competition isn't very high, and therefore to get really well established it could be easier. But Robin can talk about the development, but I would just say, yeah, as an author publisher, Ingram can get the content to its destination, but clearly there needs to be something in between that where somebody's waving the flag to the audience and say, hey, this book's available, stock my book, buy my book, this is why this book is the best on the market and the one book of the year you should read.
Sure. And Robin, do you want to address that there are some plans Andy is intimating there for some marketing services or not?
Well, I think this is mainly in the U.S. where we're planning to offer, and we currently have this in Lightning Source where a publisher can have a listing for their new title in some of Ingram's catalogs that go out directly to retailers and to libraries. So we will have that fairly soon in the next couple of months in Spark, where you would be able to buy an annotation in one of the Ingram catalogs. So that's the first thing that we're doing. And then as we continue to expand Ingram's distribution throughout the rest of the world, I think we'll have more opportunities to actually market directly to retailers.
Great. I have a question here from Anne Stormont, and we've kind of touched off that, but she's asking us to get a little bit more specific. As an author publisher, I'm about to go with Lightning Source for paperback. Can you please clarify why exactly I'd be better off using IngramSpark?
I actually think you would be better off using Ingram Spark. Lightning Source doesn't really have the ebook distribution built into that platform the way that Spark does. You have exactly the same print on POD options as Lightning Source has, with the addition of all the extra ebook that we have. It's a little bit cheaper to set up your title in Spark. And then what Andy referenced first off when we started talking about the pricing, if you place an order for 50 print copies, the setup fee is waived completely. So, you know, and then, you know, that's something to kind of look at. So, but it's exactly the same. It's whatever, you know, you would prefer. I personally think that Ingram Spark is a little easier, a little more user-friendly than the Lightning Source platform. So,
okay, so it is a matter of choice, because some people feel that Ingram is kind of steering the author publisher towards Spark, and may in fact at some time decide that LSI is no longer available for author publishers. Any comment on that?
that's not the case. I mean, but we definitely have designed what we've done in Spark to provide the best options for self-publishers. So, you know, Lightning Source is always going to be there. It's not going away. It's the engine behind Spark.
And just to echo that, Orna, we part of the strategy in Europe, and I know ALLi is part of, has participated in this. I've deliberately targeted, you know, looking at really good author publishing associations, and we're offering these kind of waiver fee. You know, we waive certain fees like the market access fee as a way of encouraging the best author publishers to participate with Spark. But ironically, I think it was 6 months ago, before we launched the offer with ALLi members, we launched a comparative offer with, I won't mention the name, but a larger independent publishing association. And within the first 2 weeks of us launching that deal, it was with Lightning Source, we had their smaller members asking why it wasn't available for IngramSpark. So it works both ways. I think some of the small independent publishers are starting to see the benefits of Spark, as well as you know, because some of the services that you get with IngramSpark, larger publishers pay a very high upfront fee to get access to. You know, we're talking thousands of pounds. Now, the advantage for a larger publisher is they can put as many titles in that as they want. But clearly, if you don't work on an economy of scale like a large publisher, IngramSpark would be a preferred platform, because it gives you the same distribution on your part of your publishing, as well as your print part. Where if you're you know, if you're a commercial publisher, to get that kind of distribution of your element, you would be paying much, you know, thousands and thousands of pounds, because of the scale that they operate. So there is a clear difference, but I think we wouldn't. There's certainly no strategy in Europe to boot people out of Lightning Source and move them into Spark. What we would do is probably encourage them, you know, maybe even create incentives, financial incentives, to move them into a platform we feel best serves their need. But if an individual doesn't want to do that and remain in the Lightning Source platform, you know, it goes to the same place. I mean, I describe it, you know, Ingram as if you think of Ingram as a house, a distribution house, IngramSpark's just a different door into the same building.
Yeah.
You know, the distribution as it comes out, nobody knows whether you're an author through IngramSpark or a publisher through Lightning Source. It goes to the same feed, it has the same reach, and in terms of the ordering end, if you're a buyer, you know, a bricks and mortar and Waterstone's account, there's no differentiation. They can't tell whether they're coming through Spark or whether they're coming through Lightning Source. So it gives that title the same opportunities, whichever path they choose to come in at.
Fantastic, and one of the reasons that we think Ingram is so great is because you do keep those kinds of choices and options open for people. And you know, I think maybe not everybody is aware, for example, that they can publish their book on CreateSpace and also with you guys, and in that way get maybe the best of both worlds, perhaps, to use CreateSpace to get directly into the Amazon feed, but to have access then to your distribution outlet by also publishing with Spark or indeed LSI. So you know, I think having those sorts of options there it's really great. And yeah. Somebody, Leslie Tentler has a question. With IngramSpark, can a reader walk into a bookstore and ask for a copy of my book to be ordered? And not just in an independent bookstore, but in a chain such as Books A Million. Is that possible?
You want me to answer, Andy?
Yeah, go on.
Yes, and in fact, that's not a bad strategy because some bookstores, and in fact, what Andy was talking about earlier about the pricing and the discounting that we encourage publishers to set their titles up through Spark, encourage like special orders in a bookseller, in a chain store, Barnes & Noble in particular. You know, there's enough incentive there and enough margin for them to special order your book. Once you know you walk into that store, into your local market, and you know someone comes in and buys that book, you know they're more likely to stock the book.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Yolanda is saying, I've been an LSI customer for 10 years now, but it sounds like Spark might be a good way to go. If I do choose Spark, will I lose my LSI account, or is it possible for me to actually utilize both?
So Yolanda, you've got the best questions. I mean, you have really been putting us through our paces here, so we really appreciate that. Yes, you can, and we so value you as a 10-year long customer too, and thank you for that. Yes, you can, and what I would say is, you know, you might want to stay with Lightning for your print books, and then use IngramSpark for your ebooks. Or once you've looked at the Spark account, you know, if you want to transition your titles over, we would be able to help you with that. So it's however you best, and I would encourage you to kind of go in there and kind of poke around and see what you think, and you know, if you think it's a better place for you in having one account, then we can help you bring that about.
Great. From Lorna Ferguson. I've already published a paperback version of my novel with CreateSpace. I used my own ISBN, having bought them independently from Nielsen. Good move, Lorna. If I were to publish on Spark as well as CreateSpace, and should I use the same ISBN, or do I need to use a new one?
That is a terrific question. So I can totally address this for you. So CreateSpace has a program that's they call expanded distribution. When you're setting up your title in CreateSpace, you have that choice to put it into their expanded distribution program. The problem with doing that is it really doesn't today offer you distribution into rest of world. It's distribution just into the U.S. And the other problem that you'll see is if you decide to set that title up with your own ISBN in IngramSpark, if you've selected expanded distribution, that ISBN will already be in our system, since Ingram is the back-end engine behind CreateSpace's expanded distribution program in the U.S. So assuming that you have not set up your title for expanded distribution, that's exactly what you would do. You would come over, set up that same title with the same ISBN in IngramSpark, upload your files, and then you have distribution throughout the rest of the world. And you also have a lot more flexibility in the pricing of your book and the discounting of that book, and also in how you set up returnability in the different markets. So that actually is a really good strategy.
Fantastic. You mentioned returnability, and could we talk about that? So, you know, if I decide I'm going to publish 300, you know, copies of my book, and I send it off to Waterstones and they only sell 75, what happens to the rest?
Andy, do you want to do that one?
Yeah, it's a good question. We've been looking at that for the rest of the world part. So I would advise, and Robin can jump in if I've got this wrong, but I would advise on the returns to click the option of destroy, so the book doesn't come back to the author. And there's a number of reasons why I would advise that, mainly because of the expense. I mean, by the time you pay for the shipping back to you as an individual, you know, it's prohibitive, I think. And the option, I think we may have locked it, but I'll check this. This should really be a destroy only in terms of rest of world, because of the cost of returning the title. Traditionally speaking, you know, bricks and mortar accounts, if the authors that are lucky enough to get them into those accounts, you know, they'll have various reasons why it's returned, and they may decide that the title's not in suitable condition, and it's very difficult when the book comes back to determine whether that was, you know, the condition was damaged in transit from the return to when it was delivered to the bookstore. So from a logistics and cost effectiveness for the rest of the world, I mean, by all means, I think, you know, it's important to have that return option, but I would advise that it's a return and destroy option. But Robin may have a view.
Yeah. Let me jump in here for just a second. So to answer your question, Orna, you do have the option of non-returnable or returnable, with the return and destroy option for rest of world, as Andy's been talking about. The other thing to know, and this is always good to know, is that you know, the bookshops and the booksellers are not encouraged, and in fact they can be penalized for returns back to Ingram. So more and more returnability and returns problem is not what it was, you know, 5 or more years ago. Nobody wants to deal with returns. It costs everybody money, including the bookseller. And so, especially for a local title, you know, into a local bookseller, I don't think you're going to see returns as being that much of an issue.
I'm really pleased to hear that, because my last experience in putting the book into bookstores is probably over 10 years ago, and returns were a nightmare. It was like everybody was talking about the returns before the book had even gone in. And yeah, and it always seemed to me to be a crazy model for sale. You know, it just makes it very difficult for anybody to make money when we're going in on a sale or return basis. So I'm really pleased to hear that that's moved along somewhat since then. Anyway.
Yeah, and Orna, just to follow up with your comment, I forgot to mention that. You know, one point in my career, I was a publisher, and I know exactly what you're talking about. 10 years ago, it was a nightmare, and but I think the advent of print on demand has kind of helped with this. You know, the stores, and also how fast a store can get the content. So they can order and get shipments, you know, within 24, 48 hours. So they are not encouraged, and they know they can get the title fairly quickly. They're not stocking titles the way they used to, even of the bestseller ones anymore.
Okay. Can I ask about libraries? We've just issued, as you know, and as most viewers will know, we've just released our Opening Up to Indie Authors book, which encourages libraries and bookstores and awards schemes and festivals, basically anyone who kind of acts as a bridge between writers and readers. We're encouraging them to open up to indie authors and to find ways to incorporate self-publishing into their structures, and of course Ingram is a fantastic piece of that jigsaw, allowing that to happen more and more. So distribution into libraries, can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Andy, do you want to talk that, or do you want me to go first?
Yeah, well, I can mention a few things. So it operates on a very similar model to the bookstores. So well, I'll mention the first thing which we have is Ingram own a platform called My iLibrary, and that's an ebook platform, as the name suggests, for the library sector. Now, I believe soon Ingram Spark titles will be populated in that platform, so libraries can order direct. But also, Ingram connects to 39,000 channels, and some of those channels and some of those wholesalers supply libraries as they supply bookshops. Some of them will be specialist library suppliers, others will be generalist, and libraries are included in that. And Ingram also own a business called Ingram Coots, which is a library supplier of both physical and digital content. And there are other companies that compete with Ingram Coots that also get the Ingram feed. So essentially a library will have a preference on who they use to source their materials from. But there's a very high probability that Ingram supplies that feed because we supply all the major wholesalers and library suppliers. So if a library wants to get hold of that content, it is probably unlikely that they won't be able to order it if that title's with Ingram, because we supply 39,000 different channels, and within that 39,000 will be wholesalers who are specialist library suppliers. So they may go direct via Ingram, they may order via My iLibrary when that's switched on, which will be soon, or they may decide to order from a company that we don't own, but we supply that feed. So that's a great question, and I think one of the advantages of having the title within Ingram, whether it's Lightning Source or Ingram Spark, is that we can make that. Our mantra is we get content to its destination, and whether we own the platform, whether we don't own the platform, whether we don't lock platforms out because we don't own them or because we don't have a partnership with them. We want as many. We are a business that is stronger by having more connections, and we're developing those connections more into different countries, into Russia, into Poland, into Germany, and we are also developing more direct connections. So we mentioned Waterstones. I know that that's not a library, but as an example, Waterstones traditionally would order through gardeners. We've just switched on the feed where they can order directly from Ingram. So we're connecting with more and more booksellers, and some of those booksellers will be library specialists too.
Does it improve the return to the author publisher if a store orders directly from you and there isn't a distribution person in the middle?
It does, yeah. It's better for us. It's better for the author. The challenge that we face is that we have our feed is so powerful in the sense that it has that many titles on it that many independent publishers can't take that feed. It's too big for their systems to handle. So we're trying to look at ways around that, and we're looking at a few opportunities. So, and there will always be people, there'll always be publishers and booksellers, whether they're library sellers or retail, that prefer to work with a particular wholesaler that they trust or they have a relationship with.
Orna?
Yeah. Sorry, Robin.
I just wanted to follow up with kind of the thread that Orna was talking about with libraries, and it has to do with curation of self-published content. So what we're trying to do with the library services part of Ingram is figure out, and you would be somebody in your organization would be really good to include in how we can offer libraries sort of a package of curated self-published content. More and more, I think we're getting requested that sort of thing, and obviously awards and sales can help inform us for libraries. There's a lot of content, as you know, that goes out that some libraries may not want to own, and so having an association with a group like ALLi would help us in helping to figure out how we exactly do that in self-publishing.
Fantastic. We'd be delighted to help there, obviously, and that's another conversation we can have. And I'll just take the opportunity to thank you both and to thank Ingram for the many ways in which you're reaching out to our members and offering them discounts and making it easy for them to publish with you and to, you know, so we really do appreciate that. As well as printing 400 copies of our new Choosing a Self-Publishing service for us, which we'll distribute at BEA, and in many ways in which you support the Alliance. And we're delighted to work with you to help our members reach more readers and to help you to ensure that the content that's going out there is good work. So thank you. A couple of very quick practical questions because we're coming towards the end. Anne was just wanted to clarify, she has prepared her files for LSI and just wants to make sure that if she does decide to go with Spark instead, that the same files will work.
Yes, they will. Or they should. There's no reason, because it's the exact same engine. But yes, and I'm glad that you have that you're aware of Lightning's specifications. That helps you and helps us when we're processing your files.
Great. And we have a question about children's book sales. It's Nick Brookland wants to know about the split between ebook and print book for children's books in US, Europe and worldwide. Now you may not be able to answer this off the top of your head, but essentially I think the question, interpreting what Nick is asking, is that he is a children's author and traditionally ebooks have not, I think, particularly been huge in the children's arena, but that is changing. Do you guys have any light to throw on that?
So yes, so partly I think what helps with our recent, it's been now a year of our standard color, a couple of different choices that someone would have on the print side for color. So, but on the ebook side, we do take in like a flowable EPUB. A fixed layout EPUB is probably something you would want for a children's book, so that the page and the illustration always sort of remains intact. And that's something that we will be able to offer probably later in the year, where you would be able to upload a file that would be more in keeping for a children's book.
Okay, great. And do you have any sense that ebooks are becoming more attractive to the children's publishing market?
Like you, it's still I think the print that is dominating that market, but more and more, especially with tablets, I think children's books are applicable for the tablet market especially. Yeah. And being able to show illustrated along with words, and even an enhanced ebook that would have video or even music into it would be something we'd be able to handle probably later in the year.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and Orna, it's very similar in the UK. I mean, I think the bookseller figures kind of reiterate that print is still the dominant medium. And ironically, I think some of the publishers that have made it in that digital world have traditionally come from the apps end of the market rather than the publishing end, which is ironic. So I think, as Robin mentioned, the richness of ePub 3, when these books can do video and do audio and do some of the things that you can do on a tablet, that might be, the jury's still out whether that would work, but that's one of the theories that are kind of doing the rounds at the moment about making ebooks applicable to children.
Sure.
Yeah, the technology's not quite there yet, but everybody knows that it's almost there. So.
But of course, the technology of the simple printed word on a white page is very much with us, and has been for many a century, and I think will stay with us for many a century to come. And I know, Robin, just before we close, that you're always keen to talk about the importance of bookstores and books and printed books and all of that to the community and to society and to life in general. So maybe you could talk us out by encouraging people to connect with their local bookstore.
Yeah, so I go to a lot and I'm invited to speak at a lot of writers groups and author conferences, and they're more and more dominated by talk about ebooks, and that's fine, and that's certainly where technology is going. But when we're talking about ebooks, you have to realize that basically you are eliminating your local bookshop out of the equation if you only offer your book as an ebook. So what I encourage you to do is make your books available in multiple formats, not only just and print, but a couple of different formats of print. My thing that I always like to say is you really don't know how your reader prefers to buy their content. Not everybody wants to shop on Amazon. I mean, I still own Amazon stock after having worked for Amazon, but I really would prefer to support my local bookseller and walk directly into a store and buy books directly from them. I think really important that we understand that booksellers, both the booksellers and the libraries, are an important part of our communities, and do what we can to support them.
Absolutely, and indeed, it's not a matter of either or. It's and, I think, for most of us, because nothing to stop us buying online and buying in our local bookstores and going to the library, because it seems to be the way that whenever a new technology like ebooks comes in, everything can lift, and we would second your plea and very much support it, and see connections between indie authors and indie bookstores are really, just crying to happen. It's a marriage made in heaven, without a doubt. And so, if our members, our viewers, which I'm sure many of them are going to want to do now after this presentation, want to publish on Ingram Spark tonight or tomorrow, where do they go and how do they do it?
They would go to IngramSpark.com. And there's a little button there that says create a free account, and you just kind of walk through the sort of preliminary questions, and it's fairly easy to do. So we encourage you. You can always send me an email if you have any additional questions. It's contactrobin@ingramcontent.com. And I encourage your members to stay in touch with us, stay in touch with me and Andy, and we're happy to help in any way we can.
That's fantastic, Robin. And how long does the process take from sort of signing up to having your book available in these 9300 million thousand stores that you guys have access to?
Yeah, so once your title goes through, you've uploaded it, your files, it goes through our processing, and then the author would get, or the publisher would get an e-proof. They approve the e-proof. They can order a print proof, which I highly encourage if it's a print book to actually see it before you make the title available for distribution. But once you click that button, enable for distribution, it goes out that same day to all of our retail partners. Now, it's up to the online retailer how quickly they upload your title onto their site. Some of the larger ones, typically you'll see the title up within a few days, and the detail page, sometimes even on Amazon, can take a few days to fully fill out all the information about your book and populate onto the sites. But typically a few weeks, you should see your book start being available in the distribution channels.
That's great. And finally, we have a question from Jane, which is about offers right now for ALLi members. And unfortunately, we're out of time. But Jane, if you go to the Self-Publishing Advice blog, you will see an Ingram badge on the side of the blog. And if you click there, you will be brought straight to Ingram's page, which offers ALLi very nice discounts. And we'll have some news as well about waiving of the setup fee and so on in the next few days. So thank you so much to both Robin and Andy. A really informative and fantastic presentation, and thank you for the reach out to our members and being there and available to help them get their books published through Ingram, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you so much, Orna.
Okay.
Thanks, Orna. Thank you.
Bye now. Over and out.